So hi, hello everyone. I am Almera Mindaya Resid, and today I am going to discuss the distinguishing explicit and implicit information provided by the author and critical reading with our subject purposive communication. Without further ado, let's all begin. Before moving down to the original topic of this reporting, let's first know what is critical reading. So, critical reading is more than just understanding the words on a page. It means analyzing, interpreting, and evaluating what author is saying. In critical reading, readers go beyond the surface to understand both what is clearly stated or explicit and what is not suggested or implied or implicit. So let's know what is explicit information. So, explicit information refers to the ideas or facts that are clearly and directly stated by the author. So, makikita mo ito mismo sa text, malinaw at walang paligoy-ligoy. We have the examples of explicit information. So, the examples of explicit information is the dates, names, and places. Definitions is also considered as explicit information. Direct statements or description is also stated as example of explicit information. So, example of explicit information is the Philippines is located in Southeast Asia. Ito ay explicit dahil diretso itong sinasabi kung nasaan ang Pilipinas, kung nasa ang kontinente nakalagay ang Pilipinas. Meaning, ang explicit information is direct or diretsahang sinasabi ang information. Direct itong nakikita sa text at hindi nito kailangan ng analyzation dahil mababasa mo nga ito directly sa text. So, let's move forward to what is implicit information. So, implicit information is not directly stated in the text but is suggested or implied, meaning kabaliktaran ni explicit information sa implicit information. Si implicit information ay nangangailangan or kailangan mong intindihan sa context o gamit ang sariling kaalaman para magets ang gustong iparating ni author. Kailangan nating basahin, i-analyze at i-interpret kung ano nga ba yung sinasabi or ipinapahiwatig ni author sa kanyang text. Example of implicit information is emotions or feelings that not directly mentioned or not directly stated. The author's attitude or tone, and also the hidden meanings behind a statement. So, cause and effect of a relationship that are not clearly spelled out are also considered as example of implicit information. So, example of implicit information is Maria looked out the window, her eyes filled with tears as she watched the bus drive away. Hindi directly sinasaad or sinabi na malungkot si Maria in this example. Pero dahil sa description, maiintindihan mong malungkot siya. Yan ang tinatawag na implicit information. Nangangailangan ito ng analyzation, nangangailangan ng interpretation or ng critical thinking para magets mo kung ano nga ba yung pinapahiwatig or sinasabi sa statement or sa text. Why is it important to distinguish between the two, the implicit and explicit information? So, in purposive communication, recognizing both implicit and explicit information is important because it helps readers understand the full meaning of the text. It also improves critical thinking and comprehension. It also allows reader to analyze the author's message and purpose. Of course, it also helps identify business assumptions and underlying message of the text. So of course, and critical reading, hindi lang tayo basta-basta nagbabasa. We are reading to understand and fully process the text information or the meaning of the text and what we are reading. Meaning, kailangan nating intindihin, i-process ng maayos para malaman natin yung exact point or exact na pinupoint out ni author sa kanyang text. So that is why it is important to understand or distinguish the difference between explicit and implicit information. Kasi for example, sa isang sentence, we have implicit and explicit information. So, as itong si explicit information is madali lang natin ma-distinguish kasi nasa text na talaga siya. Mababasa mo mismo doon sa text. Meanwhile, si implicit naman is kailangan ng critical analysis. Kailangan niya ng reading comprehension or kailangan nating intindihin, kailangan nating i-analyze kung ano nga ba yung pinupoint out nitong si author sa kanyang text. So that is why it is important to understand and distinguish the difference of implicit and explicit information. Finally, we have reached out the how to identify explicit and implicit information. So the criteria is I will ask a question if is it explicit or implicit information and you will answer the question. Is explicit and implicit information stated directly in the text? Of course, explicit information is a yes, stated directly in the text. Meanwhile, implicit information is not or no, it is not directly stated in the text. Though implicit or explicit information needs interpretation, yes, explicit information rarely needs interpretation because kagaya nga ng nasabi ko kanina, it is stated directly sa ating text. Meanwhile, sa implicit information always needs interpretation kasi nga it always needs analyzation. Yes, kasi nga paligoy-ligoy siya. So wala sa text mismo yung meaning ni implicit information. So, do implicit or explicit information found in the text? Yes, explicit information clearly visible in the text. Nakasaad na mismo sa text ang meaning or etong si explicit information. Meanwhile, si implicit information is hiding between the lines. Hindi siya nakastate out sa ating text. Nakatago siya between the lines. So, do it needs inference? Yes, of course. Explicit information does not need inference. Hindi ito nangangailangan ng inference. Meanwhile, si implicit information needs, yes, of course, it needs inference kasi nga hindi ito nakastated or hindi ito direct ding sinasaad or sinasabi sa ating information or sa ating text. So that was how can we identify the implicit and the explicit information. It needed si explicit information, hindi na kailangan ng masyadong pag-iisip. Ang kailangan lang is basahin mo ng maayos itong si text para ma-understand natin siya. Meanwhile, si implicit information, kailangan or nangangailangan siya ng critical thinking or critical reading. Kailangan niya ng analyzation and interpretation para ma-understand natin kung ano ang sinestate out or sinasabi ni author sa kanyang text. Of course, kung meron tayong how to identify explicit and implicit information, meron din tayong strategies and critical reading. So, to distinguish explicit and implicit information effectively, use the following strategies. Of course, you need to ask questions. What does the author mean? or what is the author trying to say beneath the surface. So, and asking these questions, magkakaroon ka ng knowledge kung ano nga ba ang iniisip, or ano nga ba ang pinapahiwatig ni author, bakit niya ginawa ang text na to, kung knowledgeable ba siya, or kung may makukuha bang knowledge sa ating binabasa. And then the next is look for the context or clues, words, situations, or description that hint at deeper meaning. So of course, kung look or titingin tayo sa mga context and clues, yung mga words and yung situations, by just looking out and that simple context, magkakaroon tayo ng knowledge about the really information na binibigay nitong text ni author natin. And then the next is the identify tone and mode. This often suggested implicit information about the author's attitude. So, nakakatulong ito para malaman kung anong nararamdaman or ano ang nararamdaman ni author, o kung seryoso ba siya, masaya, or galit, at iba pa. So, of course, we also have practice and inference combine. What is the text with what you already know to understand what is not directly said. So, of course, by just practice of inference, malalaman natin kung ano nga ba yung directly na nakasaad or sinasabi doon sa text, kung ano yung directly na meron doon sa text, at saka yung kung ano nga ba yung kailangan ng interpretation, or yung hindi directly nakasaad doon sa text or sa implicit natin. So finally, we have reached the conclusion of this reporting. The conclusion are being able to distinguish between explicit and implicit information is a key part of critical reading and purposive communication. It allows readers to fully understand what the author is communicating, both directly and indirectly. This skills improves reading comprehension, encourages deeper thinking, and helps us become better communicator in both academic and real life situations, of course. And knowing explicit and implicit information making us knowledgeable about the communication, kasi kung alam natin yung stated out at saka yung direct stated out sa text, at saka yung indirectly stated out sa text, is knowledgeable na tayo kung paano natin i-interpret at kung paano natin i-understand ng maayos ang binabasa natin. So, before all, let's first say kung ano nga ba ang explicit at ang implicit information. Explicit information, again, is directly naka-state out sa text. Meanwhile, si implicit information is not directly stated out. So that was the difference of explicit and implicit information. Bye-bye!